All right. Welcome back to the world-famous Tipitinas. Thank you so much to Tipitinas for letting us use the space. Thank you to Nugs.net for letting us use these cameras, and I hope you are watching this on tipitinas.tv or just our YouTube channel called Tipitinas TV. I have a very special guest this evening. I know I say that for most of the guests that I have coming on, but this is someone who is just a delight, top to bottom. No big intro, nothing like that. Ladies and gentlemen, John Papa Gros.
Woohoo!
I'm sorry, John Papa Gros, the New Orleans piano powerhouse.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that. Like, I just jumped on your website just to check random things, and it's right there on the title. I was like, it's perfect.
I didn't come up with it.
It's perfect. You didn't come up with that?
No.
Who came up with the New Orleans piano powerhouse?
A friend of mine who is exceptional at marketing.
Okay, that's fair.
She said, you need like a catchphrase.
Papa wasn't enough.
No, you like, and she goes, she's really New Orleans piano powerhouse. It's like, New Orleans piano, that's you.
It's pretty good. Well,
I said, all right, I'll use it.
I have the question written on here. Who first started calling you Papa? When did that come around?
Buddha.
Yeah? Was Buddha the one who started calling you
Buddha
Papa?
is the one who named Papa Gros Funk, and that's where it started.
Okay, so it was never, up until then, you were just John Gros.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, I moved here in 2000. You were always John Papa Gros.
Yeah.
Since I got here, at least.
Yeah. So when the first jam session got booked at Old Point Bar, Dale Triguero, who was part owner there, now owner of Chiquiwawa.
Yes.
So Dale Triguero came to my gig at Carrollton Station. After the gig, he's like, we got to put a name in the paper tomorrow morning. What do you want to call it? I don't know, like John Gros Funk Jam, because you got to do something better than that.
Yeah.
So Buddha was there that night. Jenny Baggert, if you know Jenny.
I don't think
Jenny's
so.
a great New Orleans photographer.
All right.
She curated all of Herman Leonard's collections.
All right.
Before he passed. But just a dear, dear friend, and she was really big on the scene as a photographer before she went on the back of the scene with photography. Now she kind of runs photography businesses instead of being the photographer herself. But she was hanging out, and so Buddha, Dale, Jenny, and myself, after the gig at Carrollton Station, standing in a huddle, and I'm like, Dale says I need to come up with a band name. What are we gonna do? I need to call it something, and Buddha just comes out, Papa Gros Funk. And I'm like, that's a stupid ass name.
That'll never work.
That's terrible. And then, of course, it went round and round. And everybody had a drink and went round and round and came with the stupidest of stupider names.
Jeez, getting worse.
And about an hour or so went by, and I'm not exaggerating, it was an hour. And I'm like, what do we have? What's the best thing? And like Dale and Jenny both said, Papa Gros Funk. And I'm like, I don't like it. And Buddha goes, you're Papa, you grow the funk.
Well, also, your last name is often mispronounced as Gros anyways, or Gross, right?
Correct, yeah.
So there's that double entendre.
Yeah, so he was like playing with that, and I'm like, it just sucks, I hate it. So we went to the bar, and I got everybody another round of drinks, and we went another hour. So at this time, it was 3:15, 3:30 in the morning.
Okay.
I was pretty buzzed by that time, pretty good. And we got nowhere. And so I just like finished the drink. I was like, I'm either gonna get another drink and do this another hour or whatever, or I'm going home. And they were like, we're going home. And I said, well, what's the best thing we got? And they all said, Papa Gros Funk. I said, all right, f it, put it in the paper. And that's how it started.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even realize that. Credit to Buddha.
So if you've like when Papa Gros Funk has done our reunion shows here, and even the last time we played, he was the one that announced us.
Well, I never put that together. I just figured because y'all were friends.
He was from day one, literally, even before the first gig.
Yeah, he was before the first gig.
Before the first gig, Buddha was in on it.
That's cool.
And that was the inception of it right there.
Was he trying to like sneak his way in and be some background percussion or something?
All the time. Still does.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, one of the other questions I had, just because, I was wondering about the origin story of the Papa name.
Oh, and another thing, my kids call me Dad.
So they don't call you Papa?
No, they don't call me Papa.
Okay.
They call me Dad.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like because you've gotten this Papa moniker that you're basically the dad of the band that you're in at the time? Like, Does that give you some kind of added responsibility? Like, your papa, this is Big Papa over here. He's gonna, he's in charge.
No, that kind of happened, me being in charge, basically because nobody would do any work.
All right, that's fair. Well,
so I had, if it was to get done, I was the one to do it.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get more into all of that. Let's go back even further though. Growing up, your father was a pianist, right? Mm-hmm. Was he professional or just casual?
No, professional. Okay. He grew up on the West Bank, and he did a lot of the rock and roll shows, like CYO dances, little festivals, sock hop festivals, with his high school band. And I didn't know this until just maybe a couple months ago, but when Frankie Ford quit his band, because Frankie was from Gretna, my dad was living in Harvey for his high school years. When Frankie Ford quit his band because he got the big hit on Sea Cruise.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, was that
he left his band. My dad took his place in that band.
Okay.
But my dad, when he graduated high school from West Jeff, he went to Southeastern in Hammond and got a degree in music education.
Oh, okay.
And became a band director. And that's where he met my mom. My mom's from Mid-City. It's funny, they were all living basically in town, and they met in Hammond.
Yeah, of course, right.
And so then they got, he band director. Then from band director, he went to principal at Port Sulphur High School in Port Sulphur, way down
I was gonna say, that's
down the river,
trek,
at the end of the world. And so I was born here in New Orleans, and then he decided to get his master's in special ed.
Okay.
So we all moved to Baton Rouge, and he got his master's in special ed at LSU. So, he taught special ed. He repaired band instruments because he played some saxophone and clarinet and knew about it. So he did that in the afternoons, and then he gigged 5 nights a week.
Wow.
Playing piano. So yeah, he was professional as he got.
Yeah.
Trying to raise 3,
idea.
then 4 kids. My mom was a school teacher, so there wasn't a whole lot of money lying around, just a lot of hard work.
Well, so then how soon did you start picking up instruments? What was your first instrument, actually? Maybe that's
my first instrument was the clarinet.
Really?
Fourth grade, when you're in band, you want to join the band.
That's not required anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you have to go out of your way to join a band.
Yeah, you do. So I wanted to be there, and so clarinet. And so I did that for a couple years. And then by 6th grade, I showed some interest on the piano. My dad tried to show me a few things. But me and him, as far as student teacher, was not a good fit.
So yeah, it's not always easy to...
So I would try some things, but then I took piano lessons from the church organist who taught at the elementary school.
What church?
St. Thomas More in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And the guy organist was named Ronnie Brothers, and he really was always amazing. And he was my first piano teacher, and I don't know, he just had an exuberance about music. And so, in just a short amount of time, I had been from, Mary Had a Little Lamb to playing, Chopin etudes and some Beethoven and stuff like that. And I would always bring in some, my dad was always learning songs, so he would buy, those days you couldn't just look it up on the internet, he'd buy sheet music.
You have to buy the
So
music,
he would have sheet music and books of music lying around, and so by the time I could read and play his chords, I'm always flipping through, and I saw, here's a song called Soul Man. I don't know what that is. I looked at it, it's nothing but 16th notes, and it's like 16th notes were the scariest thing for me in the world. Those are all the fast notes. And so I took it to Mr. Brothers, and I said, all right, I know you play a lot of music. Play this. I thought it was the hardest thing you'd ever see. And he looked at it, and he Soul Man. It was like Sam and Dave. And he just...
I started playing this when I was in high school. What are you talking
Exactly.
about?
He just ripped it to shreds. And I'm like, man, I was just in awe. Man, that is just the coolest thing ever. And then it was 2 years I went to high school, and I never studied piano pretty much ever again until I got to college. But then when I got to college, looking at Mr. Brothers, Ronnie Brothers, he was one of the piano teachers at Hammond at Southeastern University. I mean, he was so respected in his profession, but he was just a hard-working musician. He played church organ on the weekends to make a living. He taught the kids, and I was so lucky to have somebody of that caliber as my first music teacher.
Yeah, that's Phenomenal.
Really lucky.
Did you go to school at Southeastern?
No, I went to Loyola. So,
okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I went to Loyola, and so when I came from Baton Rouge to New Orleans, it was like, this is finally home. New Orleans growing up was always a second home. My grandparents are here, all my aunts and uncles, all my cousins. Basically, my whole family is here in New Orleans.
Well, yeah, you had moved away from New Orleans, when you were a kid.
As a kid, but like mom and dad would drop us off all the time at my grandparents' house, and we would spend weekends, countless weekends, at least once a month. Come in from Mardi Gras for the whole Mardi Gras break, during the whole Christmas break, be in town for a week or something like that. So, loving New Orleans as a kid, my mom and papa, they would drag us around everywhere: lakefront, French Quarter, the zoo, the Fly, all the streetcar rides. I mean, they took us around town.
They live in town, Metairie? Like, where'd they live?
They lived in Old Metairie.
Okay.
Old Metairie on the poor side of the interstate, close to the vets.
All right.
So yeah,
that's old Metairie.
That's old yeah. And so so when I got to Loyola, I was like, this really is home to me.
Well, when because you play a lot of other instruments. I know for a fact you play French horn.
Yep.
You played French horn on the was it 10,000 Days album for Johnny Sketch the Dirty Nuts, the greatest band in the history of all time. No offense.
Yeah.
You just know they're my favorites. I think you know that, right?
Yeah. They're great guys. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And obviously guitar. When did you start playing guitar?
Same time I kind of played piano.
Okay.
I mean, I've always loved, rock and roll music, and you weren't cool unless you played guitar.
That's true.
And I had some friends, and I remember telling my dad, I was like, I want to play guitar. And he found like a $100 Epiphone guitar at Orleans, and he brought it home with a Mel Bay book, and then it had a little poster. I remember taping the poster up on the wall and getting up there and figuring out the chords. And then when I got in my first high school band, the guitar player would show me how to make a bar chord. And
what were they called, first high school band?
It was called Savello.
Yeah?
It was Kevin and Tracy Savello, two brothers. Kevin played guitar, Tracy played drums, and I kicked bass on a synthesizer and had a red Wurlitzer electric piano through a twin reverb amp. And I had a Chevy Nova, and we would pack all of our gear into it.
Into a Nova?
And we did about 5 gigs, and it was just kicks.
That was it? Just 5?
Yeah. I came to Loyola, and then Kevin and Tracy, they had a kind of a dance hit and signed one of the most lucrative record deals ever in the state of Louisiana at that time. It was a small hit. I mean, it definitely charted, but
the names don't ring a bell. What was the song?
I can't even remember the song, but this would have been...
Some hit, right?
Yeah, but this would have been like 87, 88.
Okay.
87, 88. It was regional, and it was like in all the dance clubs, and they never did anything after that.
Oh, wow. All right. Nick, do some homework afterwards and figure out what that is.
It's Savello, C''VELLO.
All right. Well, we'll do some research in post or something like that.
I would love to hear the song. I didn't play on it, and of course, when we were playing together, we were playing Beat It. We were playing Crazy Train, Hot Legs. I mean, the set list was incredible. It was just crazy how diverse it was. Yeah. But Kevin was a great singer, and they could both play, and I just did my thing. It was fun.
Well, did you end up finishing at Loyola? Did you
graduate? I did.
Okay.
French horn degree.
Oh, you had a degree in French horn.
Had a degree in French horn, yep.
Not much of a call for French
horn.
Yeah,
when I started Loyola, I did jazz piano and French horn. I did a double major. I didn't know anything about jazz when I walked into Loyola, and I was way over my head.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Miles Davis was. I didn't know who Charlie Parker was. Really starting from scratch, and my first teacher was Ellis Marcellus.
Oh, wow.
It was...
You got a chuckle from the peanut gallery out here.
Yeah, I got a lot of Mr. Gros, I don't know about this for you. And then every once in a while, I would actually do some homework and apply myself and kind of practice. And one of the last lessons was like, Mr. Gros, I'd be like this, Mr. Gros, there might be hope for you after all. And that was about as good as it got for me with Ellis. But the lessons that he learned, that he taught, I really never forgot, and they definitely helped me on the back end.
Well, I mean, even still today, you don't often play too much jazz piano, do you?
I don't. I'm not very good at it.
All right.
But the concepts of improvisation and communication through melody, harmony, and rhythm, all those concepts were there. So when I played with George, with the running partners, it's the same language in a different genre. But
it's a different sound, but it's a similar feel.
It's the same. It's the same concepts that are behind it, and that's what jazz is. Jazz is not like a swing or a style. It's this concept of communication. To me, and New Orleans music epitomizes that.
Yes.
From the street bands and the brass bands through the trad bands, the rock and roll. It took me a while to figure out what the hell all that stuff that Ellis was talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough, and I didn't do well, and so I quit jazz piano and just stuck with French horn, and I had a lot more success. And as soon as I did my senior recital, that was the end of French horn, and it was pretty much rock and roll and gigging after that on piano.
I was gonna say, did you never played French horn on any other things really? I mean, didn't even pick it back up or what?
I never picked it back up until after Papa Gros Funk, when I was just kind of like done with music and just exhausted from it all, and I needed to find out, did I really like it or not? And so the first thing I did was I started listening to Journey and Zeppelin and Yes and the Beatles, because that was my high school loves. That's the music that really got me excited about music. And I bought a French horn and I started practicing.
That's great.
And I just had to find out what music meant to me. I had to go back and tap that old John Gros and find out where the seed was. And I found it pretty quick. And it was really through those 4 bands and practicing the horn. It's like, I love this.
You said that you had to take a break. It seemingly wasn't too long of a break, because I remember the last gig that was here, obviously, with Papa Gros Funk, and I felt like, that was June. By the end of that year, I saw you, at least you were sitting in with other people. Like, you didn't walk away from music for months or anything like that.
It was 3 or 4 months before I did a gig, though.
Was it?
It was that long.
Okay. It didn't seem like that long, I guess.
Not after these days.
Yeah. Now it's like a weekend in comparison, I guess. My God.
But it was the longest stretch I'd ever had without gigging, and it was so needed. It was just, I call it the big exhale, just like kind of just trying to come back down.
Well, I remember seeing you a few weeks after the last gig, and you had joked about it before, but it was like, seriously, my whole weeks are crazy. I don't know what to do if I'm not playing on Monday nights. Like
it was bizarre.
Have to start your adult life over again.
I really did. I really had to reprogram everything, and so I did it by shutting down, really, and just start building from scratch.
All right. Were you in a marching band with Stanton or something like that? Was that right?
Oh,
yeah. Bass drum,
what
right?
did we call that? Mark Mullins started that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Mark Mullins started that. So every Mardi Gras, Mark would get these gigs as a walking brass band behind the floats, and I was so jealous because I played French horn, and
no one asks for a French horn.
No,
ever.
They don't do that ever.
They never do.
And so I just, come on, man, I'll do anything. I'll play bass drum. I don't care. And so right at the end of him doing it, he booked me to play some bass drum, and I think Stanton was playing snare drum. And then he went on, he had to quit doing it because he was on the road with Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah.
And couldn't keep doing it. And so, hey, you want to take the band over? So, yeah, for the following Mardi Gras, I started booking the gigs and putting the bands together. I called Stanton. Brian Blade would do it. Kirk Joseph did it.
That's right, Kirk Joseph.
Kirk Joseph did. His brother Charles Joseph did it. They were doing the Dirty Dozen at that same time.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the same time Voodoo, at the height of the Dirty Dozen, was going on. Voodoo had just come out, and
they won gigs too.
They
right?
were picking up gigs with me. For like, $7,500 walking parades. I'd show up with a bass drum and a couple bottles of Strawberry Hill, Boone's Farm, and we'd have a ball. But that's where I learned street music.
All right.
I mean, but on those gigs with Charles and Kirk, their language is so vast and deep.
Yeah.
And
they've come up with that tradition, at least.
Yeah, they do.
Bands.
And I watched how Charles arranged a brass band. I mean, there's no written music.
No.
And so Kirk is just the magic of Kirk. He starts thumping the bass, and I'm trying to find the beat that matches the tuba part. Stanton will sometimes play this. And he like hits a certain pattern, and I'm like, okay, I got it. Yeah, just do that, and I just don't stop. And I see how it matches. And I watch Charles, and they'll play the melody, all the familiar parts, and then people start soloing. Well, Charles had, as an arranger, is just amazing how he would come up with these backgrounds, and then his advanced knowledge of harmony, how he would just tell everybody to play different chords, and it never sounded like a simple trad band.
Okay.
Very complex, and then you see where the Dirty Dozen magic starts coming in. And so I got a hint of that from the inside of a band, of a brass band, instead of being a piano player on the outside playing with a brass band.
Yeah.
Completely different perspective. And I can never thank Mark enough for giving me that opportunity to put those together. And because of Kirk and Charles, introducing me to all this first time, I mean, when Charles couldn't make the first gig, he's like, all right, call this guy, Corey. He's in high school, but he's going to do great. And I had to go pick Corey up. This is Corey Henry.
Corey Henry? I was going to say Corey Henry.
Yeah, I go pick Corey up. You know, he comes out with his horn and like, okay, let's go to the parade. I'd have to bring him home after the parade. And, you know, yeah.
That's good. What other bands were there that you might have come and gone with?
I did, out of college, I did a couple of like top 40 bands.
Okay.
We mostly played out in Lakefront, out in Kenner, and in Metairie.
A lot of weddings, stuff like that?
A lot of weddings.
Private gigs?
And then I joined a band called Rum Boogie.
Okay.
That Mark Mullins had. Another Mark story.
I was say, this is not this. There's going to be another Mark story coming up too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, Mark and I go way back. Mark, I guess by the time he was at Loyola, Mark was a year behind me at Loyola.
Okay.
So my sophomore year, his freshman year, he came in. He had hooked up with this guy, Dave Ferrato, who to us was probably like 60 at that time, when he was probably really like 30 and we were in college, you know.
All right.
But he was old. But he had this vision of like classic 60s soul rock, power rock, but like with a horn section.
Okay.
And so he found Mark some kind of way, and Mark was writing all these incredible horn charts, and all the top horn players would go play. And so we would play Madigan's, we played Cafe, what was it called? Banquet.
Banquet, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They would play that. We would all the music school would just unload on those bars. Mm-hmm. And that's when drinking was still 18. Yeah. So we would all unload on those bars. And so they were like one of our big things to go hang out and do. After college, the band had reconfigured a couple times, and Dave Ferrato got out, and I got in on one of the configurations, and it became more of a, I guess more like a wedding type band with a real hard edge. So we would play clubs and do all of our kind of harder rock, and start bringing in the funk stuff with the horn section. And when we do the weddings, it gets to more like the Frank Sinatra and but it kind of made money, and then we had fun at the same time, and then that always appealed to me. Like, you can't just play bars because it's fun. You have to find a way to make an
if you
income
want to
at
make
it.
this a career.
And that band was able to do both. And so that we did really well for a long time. And then it got to be more looking like a wedding band, and I wanted out at that point. And so I graduated. I was teaching preschool music in New Orleans East.
Okay.
One of my pupils was Tori Nocentelli, Leo's daughter.
Yeah? What did she play? Was she any good?
I think she was 1.5. I had them from 1 to 5 years old. Yeah, I think she was 1.5 to 2.
1 year old. Okay.
Yeah, it was preschool. Yeah, it was more like babysitting with cowbells and tambourines. But it was fun. It was fun. And then I was also working in music stores selling music instruments.
All right.
And so at that point, this was probably 90, 91. That's when I met Renard Poche for the first time.
Okay.
And he really introduced me to how to play meters music and the New Orleans funk.
Was he basically your link to end up becoming a running partner eventually?
No,
or?
that came later. But Renard was the one that showed me, like, it's not playing C and play whatever you want because it's just one chord. It's like everything has to have a purpose. And the meters music is constructed in such a way that if you don't know what I'm doing, then how are you going to know what you're doing?
Yeah.
And Renard showed me, I call it the puzzle, how all the pieces fit. And I remember we were working on Look a Pie Pie and Sissy Strut, and he's standing over my shoulder, and he's playing the music, got it jacked up, and I'm at the keyboard, and he's like, "Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Nope, up. That's close. That's close. Do that again. I don't know what I did. We'll do it again." I mean, it was about an hour of that, trying to really hone in.
Were you all in a band together?
Yeah, Poche, yeah.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Garland Paul from Honey Island Swamp Band was the drummer.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
You've been a hot band.
Yeah.
Well, consider getting that back together ever, or what?
I don't know if it's ever been talked about. I mean, Renard's always talking about trying to have a version of Poche out of whatever he can do.
He's one of the most talented musicians I've ever
Absolutely.
seen. He can everything he touches, he's seemingly a master at.
He is a student of the music, of everything about it. Yeah, no, he was one of the first guys that really was very serious about New Orleans music. To me, I hadn't run across anybody like that. It was like, oh, okay, it's Sissy Strut, it goes like this, or Hey Pocky Way, and I was trying to learn it the right way, and I was doing okay, but Renard really honed me in on what was important. And because of that knowledge, it took many more years before I got to George. But at the same time, I had my first daughter, and then went to Bourbon Street and played Tropical Isle for another 5 years before I met George.
All right, well, let's talk about the Bourbon Street Tropical Isle gigs. That was mostly you solo.
I might need a drink.
Yeah, why haven't you started drinking?
I'm going to go to Bourbon Street.
First class, yeah.
Check this out.
I got some little Bev Neps for you, and a koozie. I don't know if a Guinness fits inside one of our koozies, but if it does,
it should.
That's your door prize.
Oh, right.
Your first door prize. Don't worry, there's more.
Yeah, let's cover up that logo and put a new logo on it.
Yeah, so if Guinness Beer wants to sponsor, we are available for sponsorships, by the way. Bourbon Street. Started playing at Tropical Isle. Was that how many days a week were you down there?
I started 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
They're hot nights.
Those were hot nights.
Yeah.
I was not aware of the Bourbon Street scene until I walked in to that gig. And I was playing a good bit, but it was the first gig in New Orleans that I had done that I really was totally unprepared for.
How so? Like, doesn't matter what I'm playing, these people are too drunk to know the difference?
No, it wasn't that. It was, I was doing a lot of wedding type bands, corporate parties. So it was a lot of Motown, a lot of like Hey Pocky Way, some jazz standards, good cross section. And then it'd be like Poche, which would be an original set with some meters, or it'd be Rum Boogie, which was like a very set arrangement thing. Yeah. So I knew a bunch of tunes, but I knew all the wrong songs for that gig because at the Tropical Isle, it was all about Jimmy Buffett.
Say they just want Buffett
soft rock.
Yeah.
Acoustic soft rock. And I walked in, I knew 3 Jimmy Buffett songs when I started that gig. I knew a couple David Allen Coe songs and Brown Eyed Girl, and that's about it. And
start learning all that Hall & Oates and some, I don't even know where to
it was
off of Steve Winwood. I don't know.
It was America. It was the Eagles. Creedence, all that kind of stuff. And it is all music you hear on the radio, and there was nothing that was
these
like,
are all very popular
it was
songs.
hit after hit after hit, and I grew up with a lot of that music, and a lot of it I really loved, and what was so nice about it, it was refreshing because it was so different from everything I'd been doing up until that point.
Yeah.
Musically, I'd never played anything like it. And these guys handed me a list of like 300 songs, because it's a request thing, They had a very built-in crowd, and they played requests pretty much all night long. $1, $5, $20s, whatever came in, that's what they played, and you just didn't have to. So I was learning songs like nobody's business on the fly, and I got to where I was up to speed. It took me a while. It took me about a year. I got up to speed with everything, and then I guess it was about 4 years of that. I started playing on Monday nights. So I would do Monday nights solo, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday with the band.
Okay, all right.
And that was the first time I ever played solo, and that brought back the guitar. All that Mel Bay book and all those chords. Like one of the guys, some of the guys that were playing there, they weren't very good guitar players, but they knew all the chords and could sing all the songs. And I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, totally right.
So I walked in. I knew what the songs were supposed to be. I knew the song. I had the song list that I had to play. So I practiced, and I got 10 songs on the acoustic guitar, and Wasted Away in Margaritaville, I could play that, and Brown Eyed Girl, I could play that on guitar, and the rest I would just play piano. And
well, I'll tell you what, sorry to cut you off, but when your audience is people drinking Everclear-based cocktails,
it helps.
yeah, the expectations tend to get lowered sometimes. As long as you play something they recognize, they're going to love you.
But
right?
what's tough is when you play a Monday night, which is a slow night, you actually play to people who want to hear music.
Yeah, people are actually paying attention.
And they pay attention, and if they're going to stay there, because it's not a busy night, if you want them to stay there, you actually have to sound good.
Yeah.
Or there's a million other bars they can go to enjoy themselves. So it was very good lessons to learn that all of a sudden in the year 2020, during a pandemic, when you're streaming at home to playing to nobody, I can harken back to my days at the Tropical Isle at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Monday night playing to maybe 3 people, and they not even paying attention to me, and not be fazed by that. So all these little periods of my life, there's lessons to be learned in all of them. So yeah, I did the Tropical Isle, and I wound up, when I got with George, we were starting to travel a good bit, and I was taking off on the weekends.
How did you end up meeting up with George?
There were...
The running partners had been around.
They had been around, and I was good. Mark Mullins was playing trombone with the running partners. Brian Graber was playing trumpet, and he was also at Loyola at the same time. And John Otan, who owned Rock and Roll Music at that time, is a keyboard player, and he was good friends with George. He actually produced and played in Anders' first band. So when George was looking for a new keyboard player, those 3 guys, independently and not with each other, all 3 of them mentioned my name to George.
No kidding.
So it was kind of like the side swipe.
Yeah.
So George called me, I was interested, and so he sent over some music to learn, and we did 3 rehearsals and did a gig, and I was in.
I've often heard you quote George, or not necessarily quote George, but at least reference George Porter Jr. as far as someone who not taught you how to play, but almost taught you how to perform. Does that make any sense, that question? Like, how to play a set for a crowd almost. Is that...
George can read a crowd like nobody's business.
Yeah. Or maybe more specifically, I don't know, something about literally the performance on stage, almost like the interaction or something like that. But I've heard you mention him a few different times.
George is so comfortable on stage. He's easy to talk to off stage, but if there's too much attention on him off stage, sometimes he gets a little nervous.
He's a shy guy.
He is kind of a shy guy, but when he's on stage and he's behind his bass, that's the most comfortable I've ever seen him, except maybe sleeping in a van.
No one's that comfortable sleeping in a van, man.
I know, George is pretty comfortable.
All right.
It's pretty bizarre. I don't know how he does it. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know how he does. That's one of them. But yeah, he is so comfortable on stage, and he loves what he does so much that it's just kind of like, if I want to do this, I need to emulate that. I need to find out how he does it, what makes him comfortable, and it's all about his preparation. He's always ready. He knows that his cables are in great shape, the amps are in great shape, everything's going to plug in, it's going to work, and when time to hit the stage, there's no restrictions between his hands, his mind, his heart, and the crowd.
Yeah, that's well said.
And
I like the way you put that.
Yeah, and I saw it in any situation, in bars with maybe 20 people in them, wedding receptions where families are all in their tuxedos and evening gowns, real fancy wedding receptions, and probably 75% of the people in the room don't have a clue who he is or the kind of music that he plays. And within an hour, everybody's throwing down so hard. He has a chemistry and a magnetism that just exudes off the stage. And it's just another thing that makes him so special.
Yeah. Let's bring up Mark Mullins, because we've already talked about him 5 times already.
Yeah.
One of the greatest used-to-be rock bands that this city has ever seen, Mulebone, which is... I mean, it's yourself, Jimmy Robinson, I think, on guitar from Woodenhead.
Yes.
And Mikey Barris, who has played here no less than 1,000 times with Bruce Agrapon's Cajun Band, and Mark Mullins, a trombone-driven power rock quartet. And I don't even know, how would you describe the music?
I mean, it's like, to me, New Orleans meets Seattle rock.
Okay. But with a trombone.
But with a trombone. Okay. That's part of the New Orleans part
I guess,
of it.
But trombone isn't always specifically New Orleans, right?
I mean, Mark and I, we're really like brothers. You know, we're very connected in so many ways because we've done so many things together. We've experienced so many stages of life and development in life and growing through life and pains and excitements, and we've shared so much of that together. He always wanted to change the world with his trombone. He wanted to change the perception of the trombone. At that time, this was a saxophone town.
Yeah.
And a trumpet town.
A trumpet town. I was going to say, probably you can't throw a rock without hitting a trumpet player, you know.
And he wanted to make a difference. And so he saw the opportunity with his time with Harry Connick Jr., and Harry always supported him, like, if that's what you want to do, go for it, you know. We didn't know what we were doing, except we just knew it was going to be about the trombone and try to make the best rock songs that we can make, you know, some guitars. And I remember one night, you know, probably drinking in a bar, talking about it conceptually, and he's like, we're probably talking about a Jimmy Page solo, because he would transcribe Jimmy Page solos on his trombone, and he got so excited. I remember this was, I think it's the BBC live record, Led Zeppelin live record, BBC, and I think it's Black Dog. He transcribed that solo, and we were drinking that night, and he's like, dude, it's a thematic solo. He's building from chorus to chorus to chorus, just like Louis Armstrong, just like Miles Davis, just like the greats. And he connected it all. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want to be an extension of that. I want to do the trombone, but I want to make it rock. I said, well, we need to put your guitar through an amp. Mm-hmm. So we started working on a demo of a tune, and it's like, I hear these guitar lines on the trombone. I was like, well, let's put it through an amp.
And pedal boards, you know?
We just put a microphone on it, and we ran it through. I had a Fender guitar amp. We ran it through, and we just cranked it up and made it distort, and that's how it started.
And he makes sounds out of a trombone that I've never heard.
He does. And you know, I don't know if he was the one who really gets the credit for it, and he should be the guy who gets the credit for it, but without Mark Mullins and Mulebone, and later on Bonerama, there's no Big Sam, there's no Trombone Shorty, there's no Corey Henry. This is a trombone town.
Well, that's just it. It's become one only, I guess, probably in the past 20 years, more than likely because of guys like him.
Because of a guy with the stature of Mark and the commitment to the music and to the instrument, that he can be a role model to those guys. I mean, those guys really look up to Mark, and Mark really has helped them along, and been it's a community of trombone. I don't know if you want to be a part of that, but it's a community of trombone players. You know what I'm saying?
They're a good community, though. Like, think how many awesome trombone players there are in the city now. Well, I guess, you guys, as Mulebone, got a lot of quick attention. You know, you recorded a couple albums, and you won a couple of local awards. And
we did. It was kind of, I don't know, but when we played live, it was kind of funny because Mark, you know, coming from Harry Connick Jr. world and George's world, and I played with George, everyone assumed we were a funk band. Mm-hmm.
And it's a little funky, like
at times, it was a heavy, funky thing. Mm-hmm. But I remember, like, when we did touring, and all of the New Orleans funk fans would come out, they were like confused. It's like,
this is a rock band. What are you guys doing?
And we're coming out, and I'm not behind the organ. I got a Telly, I got a Marshall amp, and I'm like playing power chords, and you know, I probably played maybe 25%. I carried the B3. I only played it maybe 25% of the gig, and I played guitar about 75% of the gig. Kind of funny. No, we made a great noise, and it was a great vibe and a great concept. And it was probably either a little too late or a little too early as far as our timing when we hit. But you know, it's a collection of songs that really still, a lot of that stuff is pretty strong and still carries some weight these days.
Well, it absolutely is. And I remember, you know, I had just moved here, and you guys weren't necessarily playing a lot of Mulebone gigs, but I had heard a couple of songs, and I don't think I ever saw you guys live, but I remember hearing it, probably on OZ or something like that. And then obviously Papa Gros Funk formed, or at least it had formed, and he had already started Bonerama as well. Was that kind of the impetus for stepping away from Mulebone? Like, did you guys just decide that, hey, you know what? So the project I have, I think this might be the one, and he kind of had that same feeling as well?
It wasn't a mutual part. But that was my decision.
Okay.
After trying to pull it all off for a year, I realized that so much was happening with Papa Gros so fast that all the legwork that Mark and I had done for Mulebone is hard. It was hard to get accepted for doing something so different of what people expected of us. It seemed like the 5-6 years we spent trying to get people aware of us and accept us for what we did, seems like that happened in 6 months for me with Papa Gros Funk with no work or effort.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's hard to ignore.
It's hard to ignore, and it was tough because my love for Mark and the work that we were doing was important to me, but then became a business decision. And it was a tough conversation because I feel like I really left my brother out to dry, hung him out to dry. That's how I felt, and he probably felt the same way, but I just had to go for something that had a little more potential quicker than a single dad with 2 kids, trying to find my way.
Yeah.
So it was tough.
Yeah. Well, you guys did do the reunion show a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I definitely went to that one. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You guys weren't under the impression that this was going to kick back off again, like in some major way, right?
No, it was all about the love of just, let's revisit this music.
Hey, 20 years, man.
Let's revisit this music. They'd been asking me for a few years to do a reunion, but because of Papa Gros Funk, things were too hectic and too busy, and I couldn't separate to switch gears like that.
Yeah.
And practice guitar. I mean, I have to practice guitar.
Play guitar, yeah.
I got to play guitar, and it's a lot of work to prepare to get to a point where I could do a show like that. And so, after Papa Gros Funk had quit, I had a little more time on my hands to do a reunion. So,
well, it was a phenomenal show. You guys crushed it.
It was.
Fingers crossed when things open back up. Maybe there's another Mulebone show in the works.
I think it would be fun.
It would be fun. It was a fun show, and there's not a lot of not that there's not a lot of rock bands, but it's a unique rock band.
It's very unique. The material's strong, and the thing about the reunion was that we spent a week together. Mike, we had Dave Pomelo played bass.
I was going to say,
who was not in the Mulebone in the heyday. Was Vernon Rome.
Yeah.
But Dave was a big fan of Mulebone, and so he took the music really seriously, wanted to know it. And so Dave, Jimmy, Mark, myself, and Mike Barris, spending a week with those guys, just great friends. And I'm a firm believer, when you play music with your good friends, the music is just that much better.
Yeah.
And that week it was all about that. And we were all a little nervous.
Were you?
We don't get nervous on gigs. None of we've all done our share of gigs. We were all very nervous.
Yeah.
I was, Jimmy was, Mark was. I don't know about Mike Barris. I don't know. I thought
Mike couldn't be cooler any time of the day.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing about Mike. Again, like I said, he plays he is the journeyman drummer. Been playing for, I don't know how many different acts for however many years. But even just hanging out with him after the Faderdos and stuff like that, he plays all over the country with Amanda Shaw and whatever
or Bruce
else.
Dagrapon.
And Bruce
right.
Dagrapon. But they're doing every week, every month, whatever else. No matter what it is, he can play it. He's a drummer for any occasion. Absolutely.
See, in Mulebone, no one would give him a shot as a funk drummer, a Cajun drummer, or a Zydeco drummer.
Yeah.
He was only a rock drummer back in those days.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it just shows you how amazing he is because he can play anything.
Exactly. He is a student of the drums. I guess.
Yeah.
Love seeing you, and I miss you, Mike. If you watch this, he might not even have the internet.
He may not. He probably, if he does, he doesn't watch it right.
Let's go ahead and I guess talk about Papa Gros Funk. You mentioned the birth of the band. At least the name coming from Buddha, and something I want to mention for anyone who hasn't seen the documentary. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Amazon Prime. Do you want it? Look it up. It is phenomenal. It is a documentary about Papa Gros Funk, but more specifically, filmed over those last months before the final farewell show.
Yep.
Who had approached you about making that movie?
It was Sam and Josh, the
directors.
The directors.
Okay, yeah.
The movie started out as a thank you video. They wanted to do like a 5-minute YouTube thank you video that they wanted to film us on a gig on a Monday night at the Maple Leaf for like thank you for the fans and for the band, just to document something on us. And so they asked me if they could speak to the guys and get a quick little interview with the guys. And so I gave them all their emails and phone numbers, and they talked to them all, and they came back the next week and says, I think we might do like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You think maybe we could talk to George, or you got anybody like, that knew the band, and maybe we talk to George, or I guess, well, how about Quint Davis, and Stanton was early on, he knows about Papa Gross Funk from the early days. Yeah, that'd be great. And about 2-3 weeks gone, I think we're gonna go like 30 minutes.
Just kept getting good stuff that they didn't want to pass on, huh?
And then about a month later, we're gonna do a full-length movie.
Nice.
And that's when it kind of got serious. They're like, okay, can we come to your road shows with you? I'm like, absolutely, but I can't buy you a plane ticket. I can't get you there. But once you're there, whatever you need, access, put you on the list, bring your crew in. I can prep all that, take care of. So I did, and it was a great relationship with two young kids who earned our trust the hard way, the right way and the hard way.
Okay.
Everything that they said they were going to do, they did.
Nice.
Just two great guys who had a vision and a story that saw a story in us when we were too broken to see a story, I guess, or even to think about it. We were just trying to find a way out.
That outside perspective probably helps a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's I mean, it's phenomenal. They shot it very well. The pieces are all great, and even the little vignettes of the cartoons and stuff like that they add in there to help animate just the storytelling a little bit.
They had an amazing vision of it, and told a bigger story through our experience, through the life of Papa Grows Funk. So it's a good movie. It's weird for me.
Everything that when you watch yourself is weird, right?
It's weird. It took me about 5 times to kind of sit comfortably without cringing.
Yeah, that's hard to do, man. I've had to sit through listening and watching myself do these. It's often difficult.
It's rough.
So the band, the original members at the very least, Jason Mingledorff, Junya Yamagishi, Mark Pirro, yourself, and Russell Batiste was the original drummer. And in those first, it started out at the Old Point, as you said. And I would say also, it's one of the things that put the Old Point on the map for a lot of people like me. Like, would never have gone across the river to try and check out some little dive music club for any reason whatsoever necessarily.
Yes,
until I heard you got to check out this band that's playing here on a Monday. On a Monday, you sure? Yeah, you got to see this. So. Yeah,
Stan was playing on Tuesday, and Johnny V was playing on Wednesdays, and we were on Mondays. And when you think about it, the kind of energy, the 3 styles of music, none of it made sense to be in this.
On the West Bank.
West Bank and Algiers Point. When I told my cousins and my uncle we were playing, you playing at Reese's Bar? I mean, it was like old school.
Was it?
Yes. All right. And when Dale came in with his, they were still that way at that point.
No kidding.
Absolutely. But Dale came in and completely wrecked the establishment there, bringing in New Orleans music and a different culture that really shocked that whole community and that bar scene.
Well, for the better then, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My God, I had no idea.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was casual get together at first. Like you didn't think it would be with any regularity, huh?
The only expectations I had was to try to recreate an energy that I loved when I went to Benny's Bar.
Okay.
So you just never knew who was going to be playing, but they all kind of knew the same kind of style, and they would just go. And sometimes it'd fall apart, and sometimes it was so f***ing good you couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like you were in the greatest spot in the world at that moment.
And people would seemingly just kind of come and go. There was not necessarily on purpose, but someone couldn't make it. Hey, someone else is available because it's Monday. There's probably not a whole lot of gigs being played. I mean, and I think Hank in the movie is quoted as saying that you made Monday nights a real night in this town.
Yeah, at that point, there was only one gig on a Monday night that anybody would go to, and that was Donna's in the French Quarter with Bob French. Bob French. But that was a very trad jazz, touristy smaller demographic that would go there. Not demographic, small fan base.
Yeah.
And it was small.
I mean, it's in Rampart and like it's downtown. Like locals don't necessarily want to have to go downtown.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily a neighborhood thing.
Yeah.
And so the Old Point Bar was a neighborhood thing, and for whatever reason, people, after word got out, people traveled. Bywater, French Quarter, Uptown, Mid-City, they would come all the way to Algiers Point. Some by ferry, some by car, some by taxi. I mean, it was just, some people get stuck there, and I'd load the B3 up in the van, and I'd be dropping people off after the gig, because they couldn't get a cab
out there. Yeah.
Ferry would stop running. It's like, okay, let's go. I had a van, pile in.
Oh, you got room.
More than once I did that. So yeah, it was very unique. And I remember someone telling me, like, you're never going to make it on a Monday night. That's when we moved to the Maple Leaf.
Yeah, how long were you at the Old Point before
1 year.
To leave? Just a whole year? Okay.
A whole year.
Yeah.
And Hank had his minions out scouting and said, I want y'all to come. And Joe Crown was playing piano nights on Monday night over at the Leaf. And I don't think he was drawing that well, 10, 20 people at most, at best, maybe less than that. And I think Hank just wanted to do something different just to try. And I don't know if it ever took over like gangbusters, but we did more than 20 people, 10, 20 people. And it was definitely a different energy.
I mean, that's not a slight against Joe Crown.
Absolutely not.
He's a monster.
Right.
And he was playing Sundays for however many years now. And that is its own epic night,
Yep.
At the Maple Leaf for sure as well, especially with the boils that they do and everything else. But before we go too much into the Leaf, though, there is one story that is in the movie that I have to bring up for the mere fact that I get to give a shout out to a friend of mine. You talk about the Jägermeister night, which is, if you wouldn't mind, you don't tell the whole story, but just give a little bit of it. The bartender in the story is Brian McColgan, our very dear Brian McColgan.
And have you heard the story from him? It's been a while since I've heard him tell it.
Well, it's funny. When he told me, or when you told me the movie was coming out, he went to the first showing, I think at the Britannia it was.
Yep.
But he went there and he's like, I'm in the movie, like as a cartoon, but I'm in the movie.
Right.
Like he was excited about it. And that's when he told me the story. So I hadn't heard it from you. I had heard it from him, and then I saw it in the movie. So go ahead. The Jägermeister night.
So to set it up, we had started playing the Old Point Bar. It was April 11th, 2000. So it was right the Monday after French Quarter Fest.
Okay.
My goal was to get through the end of the month and play the 2 Mondays after each Jazz Fest weekend. That was really my whole expectation, was just to do it through there. And then, so by the time we got the 2 Jazz Fest weekends, the second Monday after the second weekend of Jazz Fest, we had like 200 people. By word of mouth, I'm like, this is insane, it's crazy. And Dale was like, you want to play next week? You want to play next week? Okay, I'll play next week. And then I'll play next week. I'll play, there was no kind of agenda, like, you want to play next week? So we were just
you need to be able to find 4 other guys on a Monday.
Yeah, we were on like pretty much like a week-to-week lease deal. And come October, that 200 people that we had that first Monday in May had dwindled down to like 5 to 10 people. I mean, we really weren't doing anything. Dale was coming out of his pocket to pay everybody. I wasn't making a penny.
Yeah.
And it was getting really risky. And so this is the Monday before Halloween, 2000. And I show up at 10 o'clock like I always do, set up everything, get everything working. It's 10:45. We were starting at 11. 10:45, and no one had walked through the door. I'm sitting at the bar with Dale, and Brian's behind the bar. I said, what do you think? I said, well, hopefully someone's going to show up. 11 o'clock hit. Nobody showed up. And Dale's like, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's just wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes and see what happens. And shooting Jägermeister back in the day was kind of a thing for me.
Jägermeister was very popular in the early 2000s for any kids watching.
It carried over from my Bourbon Street days.
Okay.
I brought that I carried with me from Bourbon Street to the Old Point Bar. So let's just do a shot of Jägermeister and see what happens. 11:15, nobody showed up. Did another shot, and then my 2 good friends who I worked with at the Tropical Isle, it was their night off and they were ready to rage. They walk in the door and they're like, John Gros, woo, ready to rock. I mean, to it like a dead house.
Yeah.
June's probably wondering, smoking cigarettes outside. Jason and Mark Pugh are probably wondering what the hell they're doing there. And we came all the way from the quarter. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So well, I don't think we're going to play. He's like, well, why not? We're here. You got to play. So well, I can't pay the guys. Dale can't pay the guys. It's like we don't have the money to pay them. And they just whipped out a wad of cash. How much do you need? So they gave us the money. We all did shot of Jägermeister, and then we played. And about 20 minutes later, about 20 people showed up, and about maybe 45 minutes later, 30 to 45 minutes later, we probably had 50, 60 people in the room. It was just bizarre that all of a sudden between 11:40 and 12:15, we had a full room.
That's when people showed up.
Yeah.
After you're already a few shots in.
Oh yeah. And we were doing shots probably between every song between there. So by the time, we're playing for an hour and a half, we didn't take breaks. We just played all the way through.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to that point, even Jun Yamagishi was drinking Jägermeister that night.
Jun doesn't really drink, does
he doesn't drink at all. He probably did about 4 or 5 shots, and I probably did about...
And he's not a big guy. That's probably going to really lay him out.
It's good. You ought to hear the story from him. He has a different perspective. It's all... The facts are still there. I think with Brian, the facts are still there.
Yeah.
The facts with me, even with Russell, the facts are still there. You hear from Dale, but the perspectives from everybody is a little different, which is kind of great. I'm not... Because once the movie came out, it's depicted in the movie, for the first time I heard the different people tell the story.
Okay.
And no one was egged on about it. It's like, this was a defining night.
Yeah.
Because that band could have broken up that night because nobody was coming. It was just getting tough. And
you guys could have cashed in your chips and be like, hey, this was fun while it lasted.
Exactly. And because of that night, we went one more week, and it was the Monday after a big Halloween weekend. There was still people in town, and that was a good night. And then it just kind of got consistent after that point. And that one night and all those Jägermeisters and the hangover that followed is what pretty much saved Papa Gros Funk.
Wow.
This is stuff you can't plan. Every story is a little different, and that's who knows why. That's the way it is.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Let's so like we mentioned, Russell was in the band then. Just talk about Russell Batiste, I guess, because I think he is one of the funkiest drummers there's ever been, without a doubt.
Absolutely. David Russell Batiste Jr.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get that wrong, Russell.
No, everybody calls him Russell, but
I was going to say,
his official name is
Russell.
David Russell Batiste Jr.
People don't even use his last name. He's just Russell.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. I met Russell through playing with the Running Partners with George.
Okay.
And
because he was doing Funky Meters back then.
Funky Meters, Running Partners. He would do the Wild Magnolias, whatever else.
Yeah, everyone seemingly wants Russell in their band for something.
He was playing with everything. If he was available, he was on the gig. And because we had played with the Running Partners, I knew he would be an easy guy to just throw in, because you never knew what we're going to play, who we're going to play it with. And Russ would be adaptable to whatever happens, and sometimes could always lead the charge.
Yeah.
He was very good at that. So yeah, he was there, and it was fun, and we were playing music, and it just grooved hard. But he made the statement as like, John, Gros, all this shit. I'm tired of playing everybody's music. I want to play our music. We need to write some songs. The only thing that's going to make this band different than everybody is if we play our own music. We need to write our own songs. And we started writing our own songs. And once we started bringing in material, that's when Papa Gros Funk shifted from being just a New Orleans jam band to being like Papa Gros Funk.
Okay.
Because the songs became the glue of the groove. And Russell knew how to do that. Russell knew how to take June's ideas, my ideas, Mark's ideas, Jason's ideas. We were all loving the same music, but came from different directions to it. And Russell was the guy that knew how to put it all together and glue it together and put the puzzle together. he had that magic. Russell understands melody, he understands harmony, he understands rhythm. If you ask him if he's a drummer, he's like, no, I'm not a drummer, I'm a musician. And he's right, he's a musician. You know, he understands everything.
Yeah.
And he can understand it and explain it to you either verbally or musically, and tell you about it. And he can sing you all the parts. You know, he's so knowledgeable and committed to it. It was just awe-inspiring to watch his energy, because when he gets excited, he just can't stop.
Well, he's from amongst the most legendary musical families of the country, let alone New Orleans.
Absolutely.
So it almost comes with the territory. It's in his DNA.
Right. It is in his DNA, and you know, he speaks music sometimes better than, you know, the alphabet.
Mm-hmm. That's well put. Yeah. So let's talk about how, you know, the transfer from him to Jeffrey Jellybean Alexander.
So at the time, Russell was playing with the Funky Meters. He was also playing with PBS, Porter Baptiste Stoltz,
yeah.
Papa Gros Funk, and things were starting to happen for Papa Gros Funk.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Art was doing a lot of more. No, this is when Art had his surgery and couldn't do the Funky Meters. So that's how Porter Baptiste Stoltz was formed. They needed to continue working. And so George and Brian were pushing Russell to spend more time with PBS. They had a manager and a booking agent, and they were like, had a little bit more of a machine behind them.
They were getting a lot of festivals back then. Like they had some serious gigs going on.
They were. And so I was trying to figure out their schedule and our schedule to book gigs so that my Papa Gros Funk gigs didn't just land on the same dates as PBS. And I had got cleared for some dates, and all of a sudden PBS magically came up with dates. And I was like, Russell, this is not cool. I mean, you told me the dates were good. Let's do it. I said, I know, bro, but it's the money. It's like killing. It's like, I don't mean to screw you over or anything, but I'm going to have to follow the money. Maybe you should start looking for another drummer. And so that's kind of how the beginning started, you know, and it took about another month. He goes, I'm going to need to get out.
Yeah.
And so the next drummer for me to call was Jellybean. He had played in Running Partners first.
Okay.
Left Running Partners, Russell came back in, and then Jellybean was playing with John Cleary.
Okay.
He had left John Cleary, and he was kind of just floating around a little bit. And I was good friends with Jeffrey. And so I asked him, and he came in. I think one of his first gigs was here at Tipitina's.
All right.
And I remember at the end of the gig, he was like, fellas, I had a good time, but I quit.
Really?
He quit the band 3 times in the first month and a half.
What? Why?
Well, Jellybean had a lot of respect for Papa Gros Funk because he has a lot of respect for Russell and the chemistry that we had with Russell.
Okay.
And Jellybean is a completely different style of drummer than Russell. And he didn't envision his style to fit within us.
Huh.
And so he did not feel comfortable because he was under the impression he had to be Russell Baptiste.
Oh, all right.
And
he just thought he was under the assumption you guys wanted him to fill shoes rather than be a part of the band. Is that
fill shoes? We wanted to be a part of the band,
yeah.
But it was his assumption he had to fill Russell's shoes, and it took a lot of talking and convincing. Like, no, we just want you to be Jellybean.
Yeah.
If you just be Jellybean, Papa Gros Funk is going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you already had other great pieces in the band. They will work with whoever is playing drums, assumingly, right?
Yeah, it's we just want you to be yourself, and you just find your way in the music and put your stamp on it, and we're good. You sound great with us. We love it. It's good, and you know his personality blended really well, and musically, it took a little bit of time for him to get comfortable.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But yeah, and I mean, as amazing as Russell is, it is hard to follow.
Oh, no, I'm not doubting that for a second, but I just never would have assumed because, I mean, here's the thing, again, as an outsider, you guys were so tight, you know, that whole band. And, you know, I didn't see every single gig you played, so I'm sure I missed some rough ones here and there. I'm
We
sure
didn't
there
have
weren't
many,
all.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, but
we did, but not many.
Exactly. But like every time you see Papa Grows Funk, it was a slammer every time.
Yeah.
You know?
With Jelly Bean, it was different, but still at the same level.
Yeah.
And after, you know, a good year, we were able to bring more songs in, and then he could write his own blueprint for Papa Grows Funk with songs that started with him.
Yeah.
And then that's when it really took off.
Okay.
And it's great because, you know, even with Russell outside of the Papa Grows Funk, Russell was still always like, never really left as a brother, you know. He's still a part of the
Still hanging around town. He didn't disappear.
But the five of us are, you know, with Jelly Bean included, are still great friends, and still, you know, Russell comes around. You know, it's still a brotherhood between us.
Yeah.
Because it's something that we all share together, which is awesome. Just totally awesome.
Something that I know you've mentioned before, that, you know, maybe this is kind of leaning towards the latter years of Papa Grows Funk. But you often have thought that maybe the other guys in the band had considered this as their side project most of the time. Not that they didn't make it a priority, but that they almost didn't want to do the work. Like we mentioned at the very beginning, like doing the work, you know, like they didn't necessarily want to put in the time to make this the full-time thing necessarily. Like they always saw it as just for Mondays or whatever, unless there was something really big that had come on the calendar. Basically just for Mondays.
It was a gig. It was a great gig. It was a gig that they were actually invested in, that they had some control over the music. But it's my impression that they treated it as just a gig.
How many times were they going around putting flyers in cafes and record stores? You know?
Yeah, none of that. I treated it like a career. I figured if anything's going to happen for me in the music business, I don't have a management. I don't have a record label. I don't have anybody beating on my door. The only person beating on my door is the rent collector and an electric company and phone bill, you know. And so I was just going to do whatever I could possibly do to get in control of that situation.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I was doing, you know. Just like all the hard work that Mark Mullins and I did for Mulebone, I started applying that same template mentality, work ethic, and it was easy to see because Mark was building Bonorama at the same time, and I could see him going through the same processes, and we've always been able to share the Papa Grows Funk Bonorama parallel worlds of you know, band business, and so it was tough. In the early days, we had a manager who did a lot of work getting us off the ground. He barely knew what he was doing, but he definitely had a better business sense than I did.
Okay. And
he saw a bigger picture. He believed in us before we believed in ourselves, which was inspiring. You know, at first it was a head scratcher, like, why are you doing this?
What's in this for you, man? What's going on?
Yeah, it was a lot of that, but he wanted to be a part of, he loved New Orleans music, and he wanted to be a part of something, and we were something.
Yeah.
And without him, you know, really planting that seed in me, and then, you know, at times the other guys in the band, we would have never made it past 3 years when he left. They never made it past Russell leaving the band, but yeah, just if something needed to be done, phone calls, show up time, you know, writing a set list. You know, those guys weren't interested in that kind of stuff. They wanted to show up and play, and that they did. They played great every single night.
Yes.
And it took a long time for me to just accept that, because that's all it was going to be. And for a point, I did, and then towards the end, I kind of got bitter about it. Like, I'm doing all of this because, you know, you think you invest all that time and energy that the money would get better and it'd be worth the investment of time and energy, and the money never got better.
Yeah.
So everybody got frustrated, including me.
Was there any sort of unwillingness by anyone in the band about hitting the road? Because I know that Mark Pirro kept a steady day gig that whole time.
No one had an unwillingness about hitting the road, but like Mark had a day job that was his priority.
Yeah.
So he's more than willing to hit the road as long as it didn't coincide with his work schedule. So, I mean, for 13 years, he gave up every sick day, every vacation day, every day off to Papa Gros Funk. So it's not really unwillingness in that way, but the fact is he can only make half of the gigs.
Yeah.
And then with June and Russell, in the early days, it was more about, if I'm leaving town, I need to make some money. You know, I can't.
Well, I think part of the problem, and this is probably to a bigger point, not even just for y'all, but most bands, like there's, I mean, a city like New Orleans, there's so much musical talent. But sometimes it's hard for a lot of bands to make it, even though they might have that thing, that juju, that magic, whatever you want to call it. But the ones that seemingly, I don't even know if there's a right way to make this statement, but when you're young, you're willing to sleep on floors, on the side of the road, whatever else, and that's what you got to do. You know, talk to the guys in Galactic banging out 200 plus gigs a year those first few years hitting the road, first 5 years maybe, however long, driving around in Stanton's mom's van. You know, those were not easy years, and they had somehow tricked Houseman into coming along with them. You know, a grown-up who had already seen it all, done it all, and he was willing to hit the road. But it comes to a point, I guess, once everyone's been at this game for 10, 15, 20 years already, like, hey, man, if I'm, like you said, if I'm leaving town, I got to make some money. Otherwise, I might be passing up this gig or whatever else. Like, is that another issue that you think that kept Papa Gros from growing into what it really should have, you know, the size, if the popularity to match the talent and the, you know, the quality of music you were putting out? I
mean, we had all kind of things against us, why it didn't get bigger, but that's definitely one of them. When we started, I was 33, 34. I had 2 kids.
Yeah, you had kids. You weren't a kid anymore.
Right.
You know?
I had a wife. Mark Pirro was married. June was ready to go, but June was in his mid-40s.
Really? Yeah.
Early mid-40s. Yeah, so he had, you know, June was already a star in Japan. He had seen and done.
Yeah, June was like the Jimi Hendrix of Japan. A lot of people forget that.
So, yeah, you know, he just, you know, and what I learned through George is if we're going to do it, it's not easy. I mean, this is one of the great, not only George's wife, Ara, she's like, y'all not kids anymore. George, put these guys in some nice hotel rooms. And then, you know, you talk to the Dave Malone of the Radiators and Tommy Malone, and, you know, it's like the reason those bands stayed together so long is because when they went on the road, they spent the money to separate, to get hotel rooms, get a good night's sleep. And that was something that I definitely wanted us to happen.
But they were also, again, putting 6-7 months a year on the road, you know?
Correct.
They were spending the time.
Right. We were weekend warriors.
Yeah.
Middle age, you know, we were old for rock and roll, so we were past the point of sleeping on people's couches and floors.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that. That wasn't an option. And so we were limited. Mark Pirro had to come home. And not that the Monday nights kept us from coming home, but it was always something to come home to.
Yeah. When you're young and, you know, when you're trying to find, that's the other thing. Like, you hit the road a lot of times to find that new audience, you know, to gain popularity.
I mean, just like the Old Point Bar started, all the money went to them, and I didn't make anything. When we started touring, I didn't make anything. Put all the money towards them and the touring expenses. I'd come home, and I'd be on Bourbon Street. I had a stable income on Bourbon Street or playing with George.
Yeah.
So when we came home for the road, I rarely did I make a penny. And, you know, just you just do it long enough, and, you know, hopefully things work out.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I learned from the movie, the Do You Want It movie, was that last record that you guys put together, Needle in the Groove. And I thought it was interesting that when they talked to other people that were not in the band, how much they loved that album. And it is a great record, by the way. Seemingly none of you guys in the band were that satisfied with it.
I actually liked the record.
Yeah.
I didn't love it when it came out, but I was so stressed about the process.
Maybe, I mean, that's probably the reason why guys in the band are very on the fence about whether or not they like it or it's good or whatever else.
Well, let's see, it's been...
None of us had to deal with that. We just got to listen to the final product and be like, this is cool.
It's 8 years since that record came out, and I think all of them like the record now.
Yeah, now. Now.
But I mean, it's clouded in, bad vibes going on in the band.
Yeah.
It was tough times. We were at the bottom of the valley. This was going into making Needle in the Groove was almost like that October before the Jägermeister night. Mm-hmm. It's like the thing could have fallen apart at any time. And I just kept pushing. We just need to do another record. We need new material.
And try something new.
Mm. And something good. There's never a guarantee, but something good will happen out of it. Mm. And so we did it and did the record. People loved it. And we started selling out rooms again. It was amazing. Just amazing how... just having some new energy, but by that time, too much damage had been done internally to really sustain that.
Yeah.
So it was time. Mm-hmm. But it was. I'll never forget that record because we had two producers work on it.
Yeah. Who were the two producers?
Tom Drummond
from Better Than Ezra,
the bass player from Better Than Ezra.
I said this before. He gave me his number. It's a foolish idea because now you have to come on the program. So your time will come, Tom.
Yeah, Tommy D. I had been playing off and on with Better Than Ezra and became good friends with Tom and Kevin. And Tom's like, I want to record Papa Grows Funk. And so he had a vision. Mm-hmm. And
who was the other producer, real quick?
The other producer was Allen Toussaint. So at that time, I'd finally gotten a manager for Papa Grows Funk, and he was the one who was kind of spearheading, like, we need a new record to start a push, and so
Stephen Klein, by the way.
Oh yeah, Stephen Klein,
dear friend, Stephen Klein.
And so Steve and I were talking. And he just like, well, who are some producers that you think would do a good job and make the record you're kind of making and want to make? And I was like, Alan would be the top of the list, and Tom is another one I'm very interested because he's good friends and he comes from a pop rock world. He knows
he wants to produce. Anyways.
He wants to produce, and. So Steven asked both of them, and they were both interested. Mm-hmm. And I just had to figure out how to pay for them because it was not
cheap.
It was not cheap. And so I decided Tom was going to do half, and Alan was going to do the other half. And the Tom sessions did not go good at all.
No,
they did not. I knew within the first couple hours this is not going to be good. Mm-hmm. But I trusted Tom's process. And that's why the sessions didn't go good, but Tom was so good at editing and had a concept. So he kind of edited us around and rearranged the songs to put them how he hears them.
Yeah.
Which is what you wanted in a producer. I didn't expect him to do as much editing as he did, but he did what he does best. And he brought some songs to life, which was really great. And then the complete opposite was having Alan in the studio for 5 days and seeing how he worked. And he was like a Zen master, or we called Jedi master.
All right.
He came in and wanted us to play things, beginning to end, exactly how it's going to go on the record, and attention to detail, and making sure that every note meant something and led to something and interacted with everybody, and that it was all about doing that so that the song would benefit, and it was all about the song, And so in that process, I'm just thinking, like, here I am listening to Alan talking to us, going through his experience, just like he did with Kato, Irma, Lee Dorsey, Dr. John, the Meters, Patti LaBelle, Paul McCartney, Elvis Costello, and here it's our turn.
Yeah.
And I still think it might have been his last record that he produced.
Was it?
I'll have to look at a discography, but I think it was.
I mean, it was obviously towards the end, for sure. One of the last.
It was after the record he did with Elvis Costello, River in Reverse. Of course, we had seen each other over years but didn't really get to know each other. And we got to know each other pretty good during that session.
Yeah.
And he was so kind and encouraging to me that we were able to stay friends all the way to the end. And every conversation we had actually meant something every time.
Yeah.
And the best thing I could say, one of my fondest memories is when we did the Dr. John tribute at the Sanger. And here's this, star-studded lineup: Bruce Springsteen, Mavis Staples, John Fogerty, like a big name after big name. And Allen's there, and we just finished sound check, and everybody's on the side of the stage. And Allen is in the corner. He's just shy, and I could just tell how uncomfortable he was. And I was kind of the same. I didn't know who to talk to. All these big names, Mavis and Irma like hugging, talking. Mavis and Irma talking like sisters and known each other for 50 years.
Exactly.
It's like, man, this is pretty inspiring. But what do I do? I just stand here like a little
what am
kid.
I doing here? They might
And I see Allen, and Allen's
I'm a fraud compared to these people.
Allen's kind of looking the same way. I go to talk to him, we start to have a really good conversation, and all of a sudden, this arm comes up to me, and like, Allen, how are you? And it's Springsteen. And I got pushed aside, and I can see Allen like kind of almost rolling his eyes, like, okay, I got to be the rock star guy, and like,
oh man,
I'd rather hang out with John right now.
That's great. That is so great. That is great.
Oh.
Well, something else that came up in that movie was how some of the guys in the band, at least, they felt that, like you mentioned, the recording process of that album might have been the undoing, or like kind of the death knell, or whatever you want to call it. Like, this better go off great, otherwise I don't know about this anymore. Like. Yeah,
at that time, because they were no help with making decisions, nor did they have a vision or a goal of what Papa Grows Funk could be or want to be, I took a lot of liberties with making decisions. Probably in hindsight, maybe it should have been more of a democratic process, but I definitely don't think the record would ever been made. I don't think
leadership by committee is never.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard, and at that point, it was impossible to get the five of us in a room. The only way to get the five of us together is if we're in a van driving to a gig,
or on Mondays,
on stage, and you can't. It's not the time to talk about business, and they weren't interested in business. They wanted money and music, but they didn't, want to do the work to get to it. So I took a lot of liberties in making decisions, and not trying to make decisions selfishly. Definitely trying to figure out what's the best way for us to move forward. What's the best thing for all of us? And you make so many decisions on your own, and then they start questioning, and probably rightfully so. And I would answer, and probably they didn't like the answers they were getting. And it was tough. It was tough times.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like even though I did a lot on my own without them making those business decisions, it was good intentions of getting to a better place, and it did work.
Well, and that's the thing.
It did work.
When we look back at Papa Grows Funk, and the reunion shows, 5 years later, coming back and playing a show to a sold out.
Well, even before that, when Needle in the Groove came out.
Exactly. You guys have been legends for many years, long before there was probably even an inkling that there would be an end to the whole thing. It had already become legends. You had already put your stamp on this
There's
city.
not a lot of money with being a legend.
Well, that's just it. Like, you mentioned it. Like, you said it all right there. Like, the business often doesn't always catch up to the music, or vice versa. And there's, like you said, there's not money in being a legend. Talk to all those legends, and we have a city full of them, seemingly. Like, we talked about George Porter on and on. George Porter should be a millionaire. Like, he should be rich beyond his wildest dreams for what he's collaborated on and what he's put out there.
Yeah.
But he, playing weekly gigs on Monday nights at the Maple Leaf after Papa Grows Funk broke up. So
he's still happy.
Exactly. But that's just it. He's happy. So as long as you can be happy doing it and look back and at least be happy with what you guys were able to accomplish as Papa Grows Funk, that's kind of the best part about it, I would say. And we'll only talk about this for a couple more minutes, but the very last show on June 29th, 2013, here at Tipitina's, the final show of Papa Gros Funk. I remember before the show seeing you in the green room because the show was selling great and it sold out that afternoon. Like we sold like the last 20, 30 tickets on the day of the show. And I came up to the green room. I was so excited to tell you, hey man, it's all sold out. Because I remember you were saying, like when you got here for sound check, is it sold out yet? I was like, man, it's close. It's close. Any minute. It's close. It's close. And when I went up and told you, like, you gave me a high five and you're like, man, it's the first time Papa Gros Funk has ever sold this joint out. Like, I can't believe it took our last show to sell out Tipitina's. Yeah. And you had played to a full room at Tipitina's in front of hundreds of people before, but to have sold out in advance never happened before. Like, it was sad to think that was the first time, or ironic. I don't know what the right word is.
I have been in the audience and on the stage at countless sold out shows.
Yes.
Just to get a gig at Tipitina's is a milestone. To play here twice, 3 times, to play here with any kind of regularity is a great honor. To sell out was like unheard of for me. I didn't that was not possible for me.
Yeah.
Do all the hard work, do everything you can possibly think of to get that. So to finally, on the last gig, have a sellout, I was like, holy finally, we're going out like Mike. It's like the world championship right there, I mean, there's so many other people who do it, time and time again. But that first time was, woo, how special was that?
It was special. Like, there was tears in the audience. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you remember the first time playing on stage here at Tipitina's?
I want to say it was Renard Poche.
Okay, all right.
So that'd be 91.
Yeah, I was going to say early 90s then, huh?
And then it was a good drought after that. And then probably when I started playing with George.
I was going to say Running Partners probably next. All right. Anything specific about the first times playing at all? I mean, it was probably hot and sweaty before the AC, obviously.
I mean, all the gigs were hot and sweaty.
This was a sweatier town in the 90s, right?
Yeah. ACs were not efficient. Installation was not good. Things broke. Wiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, just crazy. It's the energy of what I always remember about Tips. As a fan, I mean, I remember being in here. This was just, 3 years ago? Maybe 2 years ago? Thomas Dolby played on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Do you remember that show?
Do I remember that show? Yes. And I know
how many people we had here that night? 75, 80
so
people?
This was 2011, maybe? This was more than 2 or 3 years ago.
No. This is it?
Thomas Dolby, yes.
When he had his little trailer outside?
Yeah.
That was 2011?
Maybe 2012, maybe.
I thought it was after Papa Gros Funk. So I'm thinking 2015, 2016?
No, at the latest 2013. Okay. At the latest.
So, but there was not a crowd here at all.
There was about 120 people.
120 people.
And you know what? Those 120 people, all extreme keyboard and tech nerds and
Willie Green. Plus Willie Green.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm like, Willie, what are you doing here? Me and Tom are good friends.
For real?
Yeah.
Good friends?
They left together that night.
Did they really?
Yes.
There's a picture that exists of. I don't know if I'm even in the picture. I took a picture of Thomas Dolby wearing like a Tipitina's hat or something.
But that night, it wasn't a packed house, but the energy in that room with that 100 nerdy, geeky people out there, and the thrill that he had playing the stage matched just about any other show I've ever been. Well, I'm not going to say that because the Neville Brothers in the 80s was a whole other thing.
It was.
But the energy of this is a special moment to be cherished by a band and audience was like tremendous. And I've seen that countless time and time again on stage or in the house.
Let's talk about another project that you had that includes Jun Yamagishi. Again, a similar situation. I'm glad that we're talking about it just like this. One of the funkiest shows I've ever seen in my entire life. Funk on a Table. With you, Jun Yamagishi, Nikki Glaspie, who I love dearly, and Ken Ken. How did this come to be? And where did Ken come from?
Ken, that's an easy one. Jun is can't say he's a star, but he's a well-known guitar player in Japan.
Yeah, highly respected.
Highly respected. Yeah. And he was a member of the first electric blues band that Japan ever had. And he was the youngest member of that band. And so, he was on this rock blues circuit at the same time, at the height of Zeppelin. And so he has met all these other musicians in Japan. And Jun's an only child, so all these musicians that he played with and were on tour with and did different bands, it's like his family. And anybody knows Jun Yamagishi, he's like this the sweetest, nicest guy in the world. He loves people, and he's a great friend. He was helping this guy out, Johnny, who was a drummer, produce a record, and Jun and played guitar and helped him arrange this guy's Johnny, and Johnny's wife was this woman, Mary, and she's a blues rock singer in Japan. And she's pretty well known, and she's kind of like the Janis Joplin of Japan. They kind of built her that she has long black hair, and so Johnny and Mary had a kid named Ken.
All right.
So basically, Ken is almost, Jun is like his uncle almost, because it's like that tight of a family connection.
Nice.
And Ken has a brother. I don't know his brother's name, but his brother is a famous actor in Japan, movies, TV shows, and also has a pretty hard rock band, kind of in the somewhere between Rage Against the Machine-ish and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Really?
And he's a drummer, and it's a very famous band, and because he's a famous actor in the band, and so when they lost a bass player, Ken became the bass player for the band Rise, R-I-Z-E. If you look it on YouTube, there's lots of videos from him. And Ken's an amazing bass player, but he got pretty famous through Rise.
Okay.
And Jun was on tour. This is after Papa Grows Funk broke up, so he was doing a tour, probably a blues duo or trio tour between Osaka, Kyoto, Tokyo, like those three cities. And one of those things, I think he was playing with Mary, Ken's mom, and Ken was just hanging out. And they're talking about music, and Ken's telling Jun his love of New Orleans music and funk, and he's like, I play all this rock stuff, and I play heavy fusion jazz, and there's a lot of crazy stuff, bass stuff with pedals and sound effects, and like Ken's amazing, the stuff that he hears. But I really want to dig in on, find out what New Orleans music is about. And Jun's like, well, maybe you should come to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And so they just started talking about it, and then Jun has a friend who kind of manages tours when he's over there, and Ken's band, they all just the four of them started talking, and well, what if we just put a band together of Jun and Ken? That's enough to sell tickets in Japan if we just get a core backing thing. And Ken was like, well, Jun, you pick the band. I want to do some New Orleans stuff. So Jun asked me and asked Nikki. And so we went to Japan, and we rehearsed for 3 days, and we did 5 shows, and they were all, 150 to 300 seat rooms, and it was sold out pretty much everywhere we went. And
back show every time?
It was no bad show. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing, the amount of energy that, the four of us had, really electric. It was, when people ask me, what's it sound like? Well, imagine Papa Grows Funk, but the rock side of it, not the jazz groovy side, the rock side, the raw power coming off the stage.
Well, and that's the thing. It was so short lived. You only played one stateside show, huh?
Yeah.
And it was here at Tipitina's again. Thomas Dolby sized crowd, 100 to 200 people maybe, and it was again the whole time. Where are the people? How do we not tell people about this enough? We've been promoting this for 3 weeks or whatever it was. The show was so good, and I'm so glad that there's a recording of it for anyone who doesn't know it. It's still available for sale?
Only in Japan.
No kidding.
Now, you might be able to find it on the internet some kind of way.
Yeah, someone might have posted it somewhere, or it might be available for download on Apple or whatever else.
It was released on a Japanese label, and I
absolutely have a copy that no one else can have, by the way. And here's the thing. Again, sorry to cut you off. The CD is good. The album is good. but it doesn't come close to how good it sounded in the room that night. Like there's no way to emulate that sometimes or really express
no record can do all that.
exactly what was happening in here on a show like that.
Yeah.
It was one of the most phenomenal shows I've ever seen. Absolutely, like top 5 funkiest shows I've ever seen here, without a doubt.
Yeah, we did. So we did 2 tours in Japan, a year apart, and then the show at Tips, and then we went back to Japan one more time, and then right when COVID hit, was the first thing I got canceled for me. Was
you guys were doing more Funk on the Table?
we were gonna do another tour in March.
I can't believe that the world is missing out on that. Like I said, one of the funky shows, but like you said, rock and roll. Like there was a Zeppelin cover in there. What was it? What was the Zeppelin song?
Good times, bad times.
Good times, bad times. Good times, bad times. God, it was so good. I think Nikki was singing on that one, right?
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, there was
but it was rock and roll, but super power heavy rock funk. Like it was just strong.
It's magic playing with those guys, and you know, I got another great friend in Ken now in Japan, which is that's the power of music, bringing people together.
All right, well let's start moving to more recent things. John Papa Gros, you had an album come out this year, just a few months ago, Central City. And for anyone who has not heard Central City, it is a callback to basically everything that represents New Orleans R&B, quite honestly. It leans so much more R&B than funk, I would say. I'm not a music guy necessarily. I don't play music.
you hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, and something else, you don't play much organ on it at all. It's mostly just piano, huh?
Correct. It was a conscious decision after Papa Gros Funk to really start spending more time on the piano, because most people don't recognize me or know me as a piano player, mostly as an organ player, because everything I've done visually since joining George Porter's band has been behind a B3.
Yeah, you're usually behind the organ.
Which is great. I mean, there's a reason why I play B3. I love the instrument.
You're really good at it, in case anyone hasn't told you. Yeah.
I mean, it's an extension of me. Me and that instrument speak to each other very well. But I also have a love, and I feel like I have something to share on the piano as well. And not that I don't play organ anymore. I just, with the material that I wanted to write and the presentation, I wanted to really introduce everybody to what I do on the piano. I mean, it's just as important. It's like there's 2 sides to me. It's organ and it's piano. It's Art Neville. It's Dr. John. You know, those are my influences. That's the styles that I tend to. So. My record I did in 2016, it came out, Rivers on Fire.
Sorry, I didn't mean to gloss over all the other things that you have done.
I mean, that was the first thing I did after Papa Gros Funk broke up, so it was a big departure because it was basically songs with me mostly playing piano. That's a big change, you know, coming from Papa Gros Funk. But then I also was like, okay, I've been wanting to do a traditional New Orleans record, probably 10 years at least. I remember telling Allen about it. Yeah. Our last conversation, after I gave him a copy of Rivers on Fire. No, he died during the river. I was telling him going in the studio to do Rivers on Fire, and like the next record was going to be a New Orleans traditional record, and doing some different songs, New Orleans songs, a little bit differently in a traditional way, and then having. And he goes, "I very much would like to hear that, John." But it was just very important to document my love of New Orleans music as I heard it growing up. And that's what Central City is for me. Well,
it's, like I said, it like, I think you said it exactly. And there's a few covers on there that, you know, it's not like you're trying to rewrite these songs or make something new out of them, but you're giving them a newer feel. Like Personality, for instance, or It's Raining. You know, those are 2 obviously very popular songs that people would recognize in a heartbeat. But when you hear you play it, it's like, man, that is just as beautiful as I would want it to sound if I were to hear someone play it again. You know.
Well, you can't recreate.
Yeah.
If you want it to last, you know, you can.
But here's the thing: it almost sounds like it was recorded 70 years ago, 40, 50 years ago.
It might be
but
70
with
years
modern
ago now.
equipment. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like it's as if they had the technology back then. This is exactly how that song should have sounded.
Yeah, that was the mentality. Like, we're going to go in and we're going to play it from start to finish, just like Allen had us do with Papa Gros Funk. We're going to capture a moment and document that and document this sound and style. And for a whole record of that was kind of neat.
It's more than kind of neat. There's even a future legendary Mardi Gras song on there.
Absolutely. If we ever
Mardi
have
Gras anthem, as it were. If there's ever a Mardi Gras ever again,
that's right.
Then John Gros' Mardi Gras from Central City should absolutely be on the playlist. It's just a fun little jaunt. I don't know if there's what you call it necessarily.
No, there's nothing serious about it, but it's a fun Mardi Gras song that's easy and catchy.
The chorus is easy.
And the story that it tells is the love of three of my favorite things to do on Mardi Gras Day, which is go hang out with Monk and the Mardi Gras Indians, walk the St. Anne Parade, and just catch parades.
Yeah,
I love it. It's nothing deep about it.
Joyous song.
That's all
what
it
I'm
is.
saying.
Yeah.
Like when you look at all the great Mardi Gras songs, like they're not trying to spark anything too terribly serious or whatever else. Like, it needs to be fun. It needs to be lighthearted. People need to be able to dance to it a little bit and move around and shake your butt a little bit.
That's right, Dick Clark. Yeah, that's exactly it. And to write a song like that was so refreshing, because with Papa Gros Funk, we really tried to hone in on a very serious side of funk, and very serious and deep. And with Rivers on Fire, every song had to have a very specific meaning to me. Like, I was in transition, so I had to really make a deep statement with songs. And this was like, no, this just needs to be fun and light, and
needs to be Mardi Gras,
and make people happy. Like, if they're sitting in a parade, waiting for the parades to roll by, and everybody's hanging out and drinking, it comes on, everybody's happy. That's all it needs to emulate.
It's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Tell us real quick who made special appearances on that album. And it's not quick. I know it's a lot of people, but share with us some of the people who contributed.
Well, in order to do a classic New Orleans record, you need the guys. You need the guys. So it's Herlin Riley on drums, George Porter Jr. on bass, Don Vappy on banjo, Brian Stoltz on guitar, Mark Bro on trumpet, Tim Laughlin on clarinet, my good buddy Mark Mullins on trombone, Ivan Neville singing backgrounds, the Chapman sisters, Yolanda and Kiki, they're singing backgrounds, Bobby Campos playing trumpet, Ward Smith, Professor Longhair's last saxophone player, he's playing saxophone. It's A-list as it gets. Yeah,
it's all serial crushers for sure.
Yeah, which made it fun and easy to make.
Yeah. Where'd you do it? At Esplanade?
At Esplanade, yeah.
Okay. Check it out. It's available for download purchase. I think you have a vinyl version as well.
Vinyl version, johnpapagro.com/store.
Let's get into some more generalized questions, I guess, real quick, since you've been super generous with your time. Putting out a new album, especially during a time like this, tell us a little bit of the pros and cons. And is it, I hate to say something like, is it even worth it? But what are the pros and cons? Like, do you feel sometimes like you're just kind of spinning your wheels with recorded music, because the recording industry is so on its head for the past 15, 20 years already, let alone at a time like this when you don't have tours to be able to back up and make those dollars?
In the world of branding and selling, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to have something new. In music, you can't sustain yourself on a tour without something new to sell.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether it makes you money from physical product or not.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I guess people necessarily are not expecting to make money off their recorded music anymore, huh?
That's a crime. You should expect to make money.
But, I mean, few people are. That's just it.
You should expect to make money. It's an investment. It may not be a direct. You sell a CD, you get cash for it. It may not be that way anymore. It may be indirectly, where it does show itself on ticket sales. It shows itself streams, physical product. Licensing.
I was gonna say, it's almost like people are almost trying to get these recorded music they wanted a TV show or a movie or something like that, so they can make some serious
That's
coin.
the quick buck.
Yeah.
It's harder to come by.
Exactly. It's like winning the lottery almost.
But it's a business. It's a product. It's an investment. You should expect to make money. You should make it the record for yourself. You should release it to make money.
Okay.
It's called the music business.
Yes. Yeah.
And without the business, the music can't stand on its own 2 feet. It can't get heard. It just can't get heard. So yeah, you have to expect it, but everything is changing and evolving. So as far as what to do about making a record these days, if you want to be relevant, if you want to tour, if you want, even if you don't want to tour, if you want people to go to your YouTube page and you watch your Facebook, Twitch, whatever medium, you have to have something new. Now, does that record have to be a double album set? Does it have to be 60 minutes on a CD? Does it have to be a 35-minute two-sided vinyl, or can it just be a single? There's so many different ways to do it. There's not one blueprint. But if you want to be taken seriously and you want to be relevant, you have to record and you have to release music.
Okay.
How to make the money? It's the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
It's encouraging because someone like me, who has no label, I've never had a label interested in me. I've been turned down so many times. I've never had like a serious management company or touring agency to say, we want you. We're going to put money behind. I've never had any of that.
Yeah.
The only way I've done it is I believed in myself, and I love what I do.
Yeah, you were the one hitting the phones and everything else.
Yeah, and it's no different. So without a machine, I now have a possibility. The internet provides so many avenues for people to find music, discover music. You can find an audience with, just like in the early Mulebone days of hanging up flyers, and it's just constant daily work. It's work. It's a job. It's music business. It's a 4-letter word, but it's not, I'm gonna write a song for the love of my life and I'm gonna sing it and great things are gonna happen. I think most success stories, even someone like Taylor Swift, she writes songs, she worked, she's been doing it since she was 12. She logs the hours in. Beyonce, Jay-Z, they log the hours. Bruce Springsteen, they put the time in. George Porter Jr. puts the time in. Nothing comes easy, and you just have to do it, And so I'm middle-aged, and I think I have just as much potential now, if not more, than I had 20 years ago. I'm still excited.
I don't think your potential's gone anywhere, quite honestly. Like, you have nothing but potential.
Yeah.
And don't worry, you're not getting out of this yet. I'm trying to wrap it up in a sweet little bow, or put a bow on it or anything like that. Future of the music industry, like, just along those same lines. What do you see on the other side of all of this pandemic stuff?
I see it's
What do you
gonna,
predict?
I predict it's going to be it's going to be a very slow, cautious growth. I think venues, festivals, promoters have taken such a beating and they're not done with it yet. That it's going to, for their end, they're only going to be able to take low-risk shows. They're not going to take high-risk shows. They're not going to have money to...
The guarantees are probably going way down.
Everything is going to go down.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great time for young bands, new bands that want to sleep on floors and do the hard work to get out there and be heard, because the fan base is going to eat it up. They're going to be so jazzed and pumped and excited to hear live music. It's going to be a feeding frenzy, but with a feeding frenzy, you expect a payday, and the payday is not going to be the same.
Yeah. Well, it's something interesting to consider because, the culture of popular everything is usually decided, or at least influenced, or decided by teens, young people, young adults, whatever else. Like they're the ones who are determining what's cool and whatever else. And we have this weird thing going on right now where there's damn near a whole year of them not getting to mix it up like they used to. So it's almost like a massive hiccup in popular everything, the entire pop culture of the world.
Yeah, what's scary for me about that is that younger generation already is not exposed or has a value for live music.
Yeah, they're already plugged into a virtual world.
So they're used to having mom and dad pay a monthly subscription, and they never see the value in
spending an actual $10 at the door to get into
at the door to buy a record. Like the value of what music is, they don't have it. Now you're taking a year, maybe two, out of that chain as far as trying to educate and introduce live music to a young audience. That gets whittled exponentially.
Well, there was a phrasing that a guy once told me that I thought was pretty interesting, and this was a couple of years ago, long before this was ever even a possibility of what we're living through now, that young people are not enjoying music the same way. What was the word? They're not experiencing music, they're consuming it, like as if it was content. Like that's the thing. The word content has replaced experience,
There's a big difference for me when I was buying records as a kid. I knew how many yards I had to cut grass to save up the money to ride my bike to the record shop to buy one record, and I lived with that one record for probably 2 weeks before I could buy the next record.
Yeah,
that's such a personal relationship.
Absolutely.
With those records, and that's something that kids don't have because they have access to so much.
It's free. It doesn't cost them nothing. They don't have to work for it. Yeah.
So there's still ways. It's just different. Trying to find the personal relationship through social media and the internet, live shows, whatever you have to do. With the young crowd, I'm middle aged, so I don't really focus my energy towards that. I can't compete. They're not interested. I don't feel like they're interested in me as a whole. Maybe there's a few error now and then. So I think about, my fan base. My fan base is 35, 40 and up. So you take 2 years out of touring, out of the live music industry, when you get to the upper age of my demographic of fans, that's 2 years they stop touring, stop going to shows. They're more susceptible to physical ailments caused by COVID if they have it, so more cautious. They won't be going to shows. That's why I've invested so much time and energy in learning about live streaming.
Yeah.
Because I believe, for me, in my demographic, live streaming is still going to be an avenue, a piece of the pie.
Even after you can start playing gigs again, right?
Yeah, because the promoters, I don't sell out rooms. I put on the best show I can, but I'm still building an audience. People are still learning about me. I don't have I can't make a low risk show happen for the most. Only in very few select places can that happen for me, and I can't tour widespread because of that.
I think something that's going to be interesting. Sorry if you had more on that, but we're very lucky that we have these 3 cameras that are permanently installed, and we have a good group of people that are willing to stream our shows. But when people start putting butts in seats and doing regular gigs again, the idea of not streaming those shows seems crazy. Like everyone is going to be killing themselves to make sure that they have a decent stream available, even when they have a paid audience inside the room.
Yeah, and that's a double-edged sword right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's we could talk for hours about that. But even just the mere fact that if you were to go to a club, like let's say tomorrow there's a vaccine, everyone can get it, it's available by Monday, everything is normal again, and you had a gig on Tuesday. If they didn't have cameras in there, you'd probably set up your own little camera right in front of you so you could still stream it,
You see, I won't.
Well,
but I'm different because I've invested the time.
You will. Mark my words, John Gros.
I might. There's a lot of issues with that for me. Who owns the rights to the music at that point? It becomes documented and recorded, just like a live.
In our case,
DVD.
At least, the band does own their own show. We have an agreement with it.
But there's an agreement for every venue, and every venue has a different lawyer drafting it up, and so to sift through that and the amount of money to be made, that's why I have reservations about that.
I mean, you absolutely should, because again, you don't know, someone might get a copy of that and they start selling it in Japan and you don't even know about it, or whatever else, you know.
When shows can be sold, you know, you play Joe's Schmo's, you know, bar and pub, and they stream it, and then it becomes content on YouTube, and then you invest thousands of dollars to have a quality video recorded up there, and it's getting more hits. You know, it's like, how do you want yourself represented?
Exactly.
Those are all issues for me with this new world. I mean, the technology is mind-blowing, and the amount of good that it can do is so powerful. That's why I'm so excited and jazzed about it. But it's a slippery slope to navigate, because we're inventing it right now. It's all being invented. It's crazy. And when you're not a business guy and you're not a lawyer, you got to read small print. I mean, it's tough.
I mean, and that is the majority of musicians, obviously. You're absolutely right about all that. So, as you mentioned, your streams, the Gros stream. Where can people find the Gros stream?
These days, at John Papa Gros Facebook Live. I think it's what it is, but it's John Papa Gros Facebook page, I think, /live.
Yeah, all the links are on your website for everything that you do. John, your website is? johnpapagros.com. CDs and vinyl available for sale. Oh, and I would be a fool for not mentioning the Magnificent 7 CD. There are literally dozens of copies left. This was a one-run only.
I heard yesterday. I got we're in the home stretch.
We're in the dozens. We have a few dozen here stashed at the club, and I think the last bits are going to Louisiana Music Factory.
We should make a little commercial after this just to try to sell it.
We could. I mean, they're ticking away. You know, like it's fine. When they are gone, for some reason, I have a feeling we're gonna be like, we should have saved some just in case. You know. And I might
my one.
I might save the ones that we have and just have all of you guys autograph it, and then just hang on to them and auction them, or whatever else. We'll find something for it. But literally dozens available here at Tipitina's and the Louisiana Music Factory. One more topic, man. We're going long. Po' Boys. We have talked about this on almost every single one of these interviews that we do, and I know you haven't seen one of these interviews, but Stanton Moore of Galactic has a signature po' boy at Guy's Po' Boys down the street on Magazines. I'm sure you've been there before. Phenomenal place. We love Marvin. The Bomb is a creation by Stanton Moore, which has grilled catfish, grilled shrimp, cheddar Swiss dressed. It's really good. A little salty. You think that seafood with cheese isn't going to work? It works. It's actually very good.
I would eat that.
What is on the John Gros, the Papa Gros? First of all, the John Gros signature po' boy.
What would be on it?
Let me guess for you before you start. Cocaine and chicken fricassee.
I don't know about the cocaine part.
So I couldn't go this whole interview without saying cocaine and chicken fricassee, and I still messed it up on my delivery.
It kind of rolls off the tongue. Cocaine and chicken fricassee. I don't know. It's got magic to it.
I'll tell you what, man. That would be a crazy po' boy. That'd be a weird day.
It would be great.
Yeah.
It would be great. That would be a great po' boy.
All right. What is on the John Gros? You can name it too.
I kind of like just go for the traditional thing. I mean, my favorites are, I love a good fried shrimp.
Obviously. Yeah.
With just a hint of ketchup added to it, dressed with a little bit of ketchup.
I mean, you do the hot sauce too?
Nope, I don't do hot sauce.
No hot sauce on a fried shrimp. Ketchup, no hot sauce.
Just a dab.
I was say ketchup is okay as long as you add hot sauce. In my opinion.
I don't do hot sauce. Yep.
You think you know somebody?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not a hot sauce guy.
All right.
I would say I like to taste my food.
That's fair. That's why you don't use a lot like a Savage. You use just a little bit.
Yeah.
To enhance.
A good fried shrimp po' boy is amazing.
Well, you're not getting off that easy. You don't just get to say fried shrimp po' boy. That's been done.
I love meatball po' boy.
Yes.
Red gravy and provolone cheese melted down on it, not dressed.
Why would you dress it? You have all the good stuff.
Well, some places like to do that, and I'm like, nope.
That is. It's funny you say that. I often judge a po' boy place if they have meatballs on their menu. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
That or maybe smoked sausage or something like that.
Yeah.
That's how I judge a po' boy place, and I'm the only one who does that. But that's also fairly plain. That's just a meatball po' boy. Would you add maybe a little like veal or something like that on there?
Well, no, I do like a veal parmesan or a chicken parmesan po' boy.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing, but just chicken. That's great. Dude, honest to God, a roast beef po' boy with lots of gravy. I like the chuck roast instead of the slices.
Yeah.
and the gravy and like Swiss or provolone melted on there, then you can dress that sucker. And if I don't have the gravy running down my arms like this, so like as I'm trying to bite and I don't know whether like just bite or deal with the gravy, I'm biting and the gravy's gonna roll.
All right.
That's
so would you want the John Gros to be a roast beef style po' boy or maybe the meatball?
If I had to make one, I might make my own po' boy. I don't know what we'd have to put some bacon on it, some kind of way.
You know what? Actually, roast beef with bacon would probably go, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and nominate that one for you. Roast beef with bacon and provolone and Swiss, or just one?
Either one. I'll probably go with provolone.
Okay.
Or Gouda. Actually, Gouda on a roast beef would be.
I've never had Gouda on a roast beef.
Smoked Gouda on a roast beef would be amazing.
The only way I like roast beef on po' boys is in like a 30,
Yeah, you know why? Because the roast beef isn't that good. You got to add the ham to it. But if you get the right roast beef,
I really love ham more than roast beef. That's the thing.
That's good.
Well, you've been super generous with your time, and no one leaves empty-handed. Like I said, you're going to have multiple prizes, along with that koozie, by the way. You receive a certificate suitable for framing.
Broadcast.
So yeah, they'll do the slow handoff, and then I'll have you read it on the microphone.
Whoa.
All right, go ahead. And you get a folder, too, so you don't lose it and try and leave it behind.
A certificate suitable for framing for participation in the All Right broadcast. I'm liking this. Mm-hmm. We hereby certify that you, John Papa Gros, are officially awesome for being interviewed on this day, December 4th, 2020, for absolutely no monetary compensation whatsoever. Congratulations, and you're welcome.
You're welcome. With a seal of seriousness on there. Don't lose it. You get
I'm going to put that on there. Oh, yeah.
Seriously, John Gros, you are such a delight. Let me go ahead and wrap it up, and then I'll let you leave. Thank you so much to the great Pete Jones doing lights and sound over there. Thank you to Tanner Logan upstairs in the office controlling the cameras. And thank you to Nick Logan that's going to be doing all the edits and adding all that stuff in that we were talking about earlier and even cutting out the bathroom break part. And thank you to Tipatinas for letting us use the space. Hope you're watching this on tipatinas.tv or just on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TipatinasTV. Like and subscribe. Just do it. It's free. It doesn't cost you nothing. And thank you to nugs.net for letting us use your equipment and everything else. And thank you so much. Seriously, John Gros, a delight. I just love having you around. I can listen to you talk all day, and obviously I do. So thanks for coming out, man. And light cue now. Look at that. Whoa. Did it look cool? I hope it looked cool.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Tanner, did it look cool? I don't know.
Is Tanner related to Nick?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Okay.
Tanner Logan and Nick Logan are related, yeah. John, seriously, thank you, man.